So, because we're studying fugues a little bit, I thought I would show you one of mine and explain what I did with it. This is a fugue in G sharp minor, and it's fugue number 7 from my set. It's a set of 7 actually, so it's the last one. And it's a two-voice fugue. Um, it actually doesn't sound empty, even though it's only two voices, because we have a subject that's very disjunct, jumping around a lot. So sometimes even just a single voice sounds like two voices. Sometimes we call that compound melody. Um, I'm going to play the recording and then we'll talk about what's happening in it. So here's the score of my fugue in G sharp minor. You notice that this is obviously not really an imitation of Baroque music. It doesn't sound Baroque, does it? It's using fugal techniques in a slightly more modern style. You might say in a neo-Baroque style. Let's take a look at the subject. So I consider the subject as ending right there, and then the answer comes in immediately. I mentioned that we have this nice disjunct motive, a broken up G sharp minor chord, of course. You notice, of course, I used that motive all the way through the piece, like in the episodes. I did a lot with that, right? See this long note here? You probably notice I was pretty careful, like whenever that happens, see, like here it happens in the answer, I filled it with rhythmic activity in the other voice. So we have kind of complementary rhythms. When one voice has a longer note, the other voice has a more rhythmically active part. And so again, there are several things that are not very standard, that are not really like what Bach does, for instance. So when I do the subject in C sharp major here, I have it come in. This is almost like another exposition. See, the subject is almost always answered immediately by the other voice. That's not typical of Bach. Like usually Bach will do that in the exposition. All of the voices will have the subject. That's in a way, that's the definition of the exposition section of a fugue. What I've done is I've had really several expositions in this piece. You probably did notice that. We have a lot of sequences, of course. I actually really like this. Like one thing I like about fugues is that the subject sounds different in different contexts. Like the context, I've put, this is really entrance in what sounds like the key of D sharp minor, right? I've put it against a G sharp minor chord, and nice kind of sweet sound. I'll play this again in a minute and we can listen for that. Sometimes the entrance of the subject may not be very noticeable. I would say that this is not really Bach's procedure, but more of a modern procedure. Here the beat that the subject enters on is different in these two entrances here. And this is done canonically in a way. You could call it stretto, when the entrances of the subject overlap each other. Certain fugue subjects are made for this. There's something that I really like here. So this is a retrograde version of this subject. So you remember, like, our subject went like this. So let's go back to the first entrance of it. Ends like that. Now let's look at where it gets inverted. Sorry, it gets retrograded back to front. So it's kind of a strange finish to it, but it works quite well. And again, not every subject is made to be used in that way, but this one does work very well like that. Here's another place where it's a kind of a stretto. See the subject. So again, this is, this is the retrograde version of the subject. Goes to here. See, if you were doing it the other way around, da ba ba dum ba. So, and then here it is combined with a straight version of it. And again, we're in kind of different keys there. They combine together in interesting ways because of that. And then you can see I kind of almost overused this subject, didn't I? I think you could accuse me of that. So right here is where the backwards and frontwards version of the subject are going
at the same time. That's quite an interesting effect. And then at the end here, more stretto, very close entrances, makes a very kind of intense ending. Stretto, we looked a little bit at Bach's first fugue from the Wohltempered Clavier, where he writes a lot of stretto. Where you'll usually hear it is at the end of a piece. So this is a good example of having a more intense ending from using the stretto. So let's listen to it again.